근래에는 새로 입사한 사우들에게 우리 회사를 가르치는 일을 부탁받았소. 제법 즐거웠지. 열차를 정리하는 것보다 더욱. 어쩌면 나는 누군가를 가르치는 데 재능이 있었을지도 모르오. 혹은 흥미라던가.
Unfortunately, you're about to be replaced. Greetings and salutations, everyone. I'm Ekmek. This is Limbus Company. The new seasonal identity is available. LCE Ego Dimension Shredder.
고맙소. 잘 먹으리다. 헛 일전에 낯간지럽다며 거절하였던 부서 회식. 염치불고하고 함께해도 되겠어?
Alright, let's see what he can do. So, LCE Ego. It's an Ego gear, it's LCE, it's Limbus Company. Skill 1, Dimensional Slice, 5 plus 6, so it's rolling an 11 at base. Consume 2 charge count to gain a coin power, gain 6 charge count once per skill, inflict a rupture, consume a dimensional castaway to reuse the coin. Once per skill. Skill 2, Consecutive Dimensional Slice. Consume 5 charge count to gain final power plus 2. Gain charge count, inflict rupture, inflict dimensional rift. Deal slash damage equal to charge potency on self times 4% of this coin's final damage to a maximum of 20%. Defensive skill Sidestep. Plus 2 offense level. Combat start, gain a dimensional castaway and a quadricolored dimension once per turn. At 3 plus charge potency, gain an additional stack of the above effects. Oh, for some reason I keep forgetting that it gets extra potency for these effects. At fewer than 7 charge count, consume 7 minus charge count on self up to 7. This unit's HP cannot drop below 0 due to this effect. Or 2-0, round it down. Combat start. At more than 15 charge count, consume up to 10 surplus charge count to apply the following. Heal charge count consumed HP, and divided by 3 haste is gained next turn. Gain a charge potency every time we consume 10 cumulative charge count. When another ally's skill hits an enemy, at attack end, consume a dimensional castaway to activate Dimensional Slice, then gain a quadricolored dimension. So about the only way he's going to be getting that. He'll have 2 color dimensions from using a sidestep then. And nothing else there. In terms of panic effects, yeah, it's the usual. Alright, Uptie 1, raise the speed from 3 to 5 to 3 to 6. Inflict extra rupture. At 3 plus charge potency, gain a coin power. Gain 6 charge count, inflict 2 rupture, inflict a dimensional rift, deal slash damage equal to charge potency on self times 4%, etc, etc. Combat passive unlocked. If faster than the target, deal speed difference times charge potency on self damage. To a maximum of 20%. Now that's interesting. So if you were somehow at 20 charge potency, which would be 200 charge count consumed, then as long as you're even a tiny bit faster, then you get that. But let's just say 2, then you'd want to have 10 charge potency, 3 makes... it's numbers games, you're probably not interested. Turn end, gain charge potency on self divided by 2 haste next turn, maximum of 2, round it down. So that caps at 4 charge potency. I guess they expect you to have about 5 speed over your target. Speed range, go from 3 to 6 to 3 to 7. Gain Rip Space. At 15 charge count, activate 4-dimensional refraction time series Severance instead. On use, at 7 to 14 charge count, consume all charge count and gain 1 coin power for every 7 charge count consumed. Okay. Gain a quadricolor castaway and a quadricolor dimension. Gain a charge count. Gain a charge count. Inflict a rupture. Inflict a rupture. Inflict 2-dimensional rift. Deal slash damage equal to charge potency on self times 4%. Caps at 5 charge potency. 4-dimensional refraction time series severance. Final power +1 for every rupture and dimensional rift on the main target. Gain a dimensional castaway and a quadricolor dimension. Consume 15 charge count to gain final power and coin power. So by default these are going to be 5. These coins will be 5 strong. On hit, gain quadricolor dimensions, inflict a rupture, deal slash damage. Quadricolor dimension, rupture, slash damage, quadricolor rupture, slash damage, gain charge count, inflict rupture, dimensional rift. A 5+ charge potency, reuse this coin. Potency, not count, so... Okay, so the 4th coin hits just a tiny bit harder. Slightly more rupture and dimensional rift. Upgrade dimensional slice so it's a 6+6, maximum of 12. Upgrade the coin power so it's 4+6 to 16. Or maybe 18. Or 20. You do you. Let man outrun even the ray of light. When one ally with the fastest speed uses a skill that gains or consumes charge count, gain a haste next turn, once per turn.
무수히 많은 차원을 파헤쳐 마침내 돌아왔건만.
Now the question is, how does this tie to the House of Spiders? I'm rather curious. Strictly construed, I could not rightly be described as a person of sociable disposition. Nay, even should such a strict observation be dispensed with, many would naturally arrive at that judgment, for I myself have long thought the same. I confess, I was beset by a concern when I first entered this company's employ. For a department so devoted to research, there was an astonishing preponderance of socially disposed individuals here. I had expected to be in the company of those who prefer to remain seated quietly in the research facility, surrounded by books and apparatus with their fingers wrapped around pens or tapping on keyboards. Yet more often than not, someone would approach me with a precipitous proposal of dining excursion. Another would invite me to join in experiments on some new prototype. By conventional definition, the title researcher refers to those who bear glasses of substantial bulk and liberal refraction, those who so seldom depart their seats that their neck, back and tongue alike have grown stiff. Here, however, were researchers of unconventional vocational disposition, some boasting the physique of a circus strongman, some who were engrossed in embellishing themselves with the latest cosmetics and clothes. What's with this sword hilt and talisman on it? And why do you have that armored pauldron on? Are these all ego gifts? And that led me to realize that the compass of my understanding of the common state of things was narrower than even the tiniest of bird cages. It's not fun anymore. Being hardly sociable myself, I spent my time here wondering whether this would be a suitable workplace for me in the long run. I have never been one with much predilection for change. In those days, I constantly wondered whether the ceaselessly excitable personalities of those around me would send me into bouts of vertigo and nausea, and whether it would be wiser to seek another job while the opportunity still remained. But it is said that even the flow of the smallest brook may wear away the stone. Unobtrusive and persistent, their overtures did, in the end, manage to turn me toward them. Though I was yet to grow wholly accustomed to the habitat of that scrawny hand striking my back, that is, and the hearty laughter that came with that breach of personal space. That being said, were it not for them, I would never have understood that sequestering oneself to the laboratory was not the most ideal answer. And once I began to examine the ego gear researched here in LCE, I also came to understand that the old-fashioned practice of conducting research in the confines of rooms could hardly contribute to the proper study of subjects. Because the notion that human emotion could react so directly to a research subject was not one I had ever entertained before. Not here either. And if it's not, my co-workers had taken to providing me with fermented dairy drinks. One appeared upon my desk, and then another. By the time the beverages had accumulated beyond the prospect of solitary consumption, and when eventually the sole solution was to pass them along to some other people, the company entrusted me with the exclusive responsibility for researching a particular piece of ego gear. It was denominated Dimension Shredder. As its name intimated, it possessed the ability to tear through the empty air, opening a passage by which one might traverse another dimension. I had thought that the assignment of responsibility too was attentive solicitude on the management's part, an act of care for an employee who had just begun to exchange words with his co-workers, but had yet to learn the finer points of actively initiating an interaction of his own accord. Aid extended towards one such as I, who would approach others with the intention of sharing a beverage, only to pause and dither bashfully before returning to his seat, the bottle still in his hand. Though all things considered, I now believe it was less an act of cunning, an act of care than a cunning expedient. A human resource management policy to foster camaraderie and permit me the guise of testing Ego Gear's capabilities through which I may, however circuitously, initiate. I might test passing through a dimensional aperture to surreptitiously place a bottle of beverage on a colleague's desk, then return from thence to my own desk, perhaps with a comment or two on the successful use of it. Something along the lines of, I've arrived at the intended coordinates with a deviation. An unabashedly blatant loophole, but initiation nonetheless. Perhaps the expectation was to have me, through the incremental repetition of such acts, grow sociable enough to someday leave a small note of greeting beside the drink, or mayhap on another day to initiate, however awkwardly, a conversation with a co-worker whom I might encounter at the end of a brief dimensional travel. Until perhaps, upon a someday more distant still, I might finally converse in comfort with my fellows in the company cafeteria, without requiring any dimensional travel as a means to close the distance between myself and another. Until someday, I might approach, by my own volition, a new hire who joins the department to place a bottle of beverage before them and say, "Pray have one of these, this is for you." This cannot be. It ought surely to lie there, waiting for my return betwixt the passing dimensions. I have already torn open hundreds of dimensional pathways to pass through. The coordinates, too, had to have been correct. Perhaps I'd been overly reliant on the convenient ambiguity that by the word "someday" affords, by which I had purchased the permission to postpone every unactioned gesture. It seems that those vague, vacillating assurances of the past have finally returned to have me reap the consequences. So he was out testing at the time of the House of Spiders raid, I guess? It was just another experiment on the dimensions, a routine test of the ego, as the purpose of this particular experiment was to leap through more dimensions than I had in the prior experiments. I had prepared a greater variety of loopholes, and as a contingency for unforeseen emergencies, I had identified the absolute dimension from which I could guarantee my return to whence I departed. In spite of my vigilance, in spite of my thoroughness, however, I cannot find my way to my home dimension. I must scour the path to find the way back. The path to where the welcoming camaraderie and warmth await. Alas, leap after leap, only the remnants of carnage and its blood-steeped scent hail my return. In between scenes of carnage, I witnessed repeatedly the effervescent pits of venom, lands in ceaseless tremor, and globes of plasma-charged high-voltage electricity that fried every molecule it struck. Well, that's 3 of the portals. How much time have I spent searching, I cannot know. It may be that in the liminal spacetimes that exist within and without the multiplicity of dimensions, time has already progressed to such a longitude that it has crossed the fringes of my capacity to perceive it. Nevertheless, I am left bereft of choice but to still my lungs' troubled respiration, and persevere in the search for my colleagues, endlessly longing for their warmth. That I may tell them I am sorry, that I was content only to receive, never give, that I made my bed in the comfort of doing naught to reciprocate. Until, at last, I came to realize. As a matter of fact, the alley was an open one. I hadn't gone astray. That an accident of sorts had brought a scourge to whence I came and wrought such carnage that it was no more recognizable than an alien dimension. Had we not been assured that the security systems of our company, comprised of contraptions of peerless worth, made it nigh impossible to penetrate? So how? The security systems were disabled from within. A traitor in our midst. Thus, I embrace a second realization. Of course, in the infinite possibilities afforded by the multitude of dimensions, a word of such preposterous treachery may also exist. But that cannot possibly be the dimension I call home. Of this I am certain. I know of no colleague of mine who would dare commit such a... Nay, there is no time to dally on such worthless musing. Hurry along, I must, hurry along. To my world, where warmth and kindness await. Maybe he arrived back at a world where the Yiseng of that LCE had just passed away, so he could replace it. But you don't get happy endings in Project Moon, let's be fair. Raises coin power to 7, so he rolls a 13. On use, final power for every charge count on self plus rupture and dimensional rift on the target, to a maximum of 3. Consume 2 charge count to gain another coin power. 9 plus 8, 17. On use, gain charge count. Once per skill, inflict a rupture, consume a dimensional castaway to reuse the coin once per skill. So that's another plus 8. He's going to be rolling very high. Final power plus 1 for every 6 rupture and dimensional rift on the target. The only way you're going to see that conditional is if someone else is using Dimension Shredder before him, or if he's already hit a target and then hits it again. All the usuals. Raise the base power for Rip Space to 5. Five plus 4. That does roll a 17. We're getting charge identities that don't have useless skill 3s for the skill checks. Final power for every 6 rupture and dimensional rift on the target. Gain a dimensional castaway and a quadricolor dimension. Combat start, gain charge barrier equal to charge potency. Gain dimensional castaway and quadricolor dimensions. Gain everything, etc, etc. It doesn't do anything to his advanced skill, you notice. You aren't really going to pay much attention to the conditionals because they're pretty much impossible to get. Outside of mirror dungeons, anyway. Hang on, let me think. We're doing a test run in the usual grinding spot. Granted, we're gonna have to use a box to afford it, but what else are we gonna use it on?
Cさん、 집중. 시선,
연구
시선, 집중.
이름의 통로를 설치하여 내도하지 못할 곳으로.
I did do the rental team run, and that was kind of fun. Oh yeah, the numbers are just way too crazy.
행선지는 정해졌어. 어디 시험해보지. 이름.
Ooh, ow, ow, ow.
갈 길이 멀구려.
Only one defense level versus level 5 goons is still kind of concerning. Gregor needs a tiny bit of gloom, though.
행선지는 정해졌어. 노력은 가상하지만 노력은 가상하지만 어디 시험을 보지. 지원하지.
And there's that max charge. Oh. Ah, whatever.
나선 속을 벗어날 수는 없다.
색색이 황홀하고.
Oh wait, that's going to eat all his charge so he doesn't get the quadricolored dimensions. Whoops.
지원하지.
나선 속을 벗어날 수는 없다.
I probably shouldn't have used Dimension Shredder. Oh well. The problem is that they really don't have anything they just don't know what they want to do with charge at the moment.
다행이다. 정말 다행이다.
Because everything else is getting its own version of charge. Oh well, he'll figure out what he wants to. They'll figure it out eventually, and we still have a few new things to get before the next Kanto hits. There's plans for a Don Quixote ego after all.
밤이 되면 달도 없는 금읍출야에 새까맣게. 검날에 축전된 에너지로 공간의 굴절률을 높여 한계치까지 왜곡시킨 뒤 베어내는 것이여 이 탓에 찢어진 형상을 하는 것이고, 이 원리를 발견하고 4차각 왜곡 시계열 절단으로 몇 번이고 정정 신청을 했건만 상부에서는 어쩐 일인지 인가해주지 않는구려.
I see he still has to fill these skills with such an overbearing amount of dialogue.